When we talk about non-value added, we really talk about the 8 forms of waste: transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects, and underutilized skills. Or what I would say to you is to remember the name Tim Woods. Let's define each one of those. So let's start with transportation. So transportation occurs when materials are moved from one place to another. Anytime you see wheels, it's waste. Forklifts, pallet jacks, carts, delivery trucks, it's waste. It's just moving. It may look like work is being done, but is the customer willing to pay for you to move the material around the building? It isn't their fault, ultimately, why your factory is set up the way it is. And ultimately, the reason why we have so many forklifts or movement of material is based on setup and location of the equipment. So in this example, we have carts all around our building to move material with. As a matter of fact, we have a pallet jack located at every single one of our cost centers, our pieces of equipment, and they move material all day long. Sometimes they even get in the way of each other, and we have to move them even more to get around other material. Nothing is changing, and material is just staying the same, but really moving from just one point to another. So how do we eliminate that waste? We start to look at where our equipment is placed in relation to the other. Our next waste is inventory. Whether it's in the form of WIP, raw material, or finished goods, excess inventory allows for process quality and rate of work to remain hidden. It wastes space, it ties up cash, and it hides all of the other forms of waste. In this example that you see here, I was always notorious for walking the floor and going, whew, I'm so excited. We got a lot of work on the floor. That means we got a lot of work in the building and we're busy. But really, material's just sitting and it's waiting, right? It's not moving from one step to the next. And there's delays in the process. And it's making the delivery process even longer to get to the customer. If we had an efficient process, that pallet of material would keep moving. It would move from the next location and not wait to be processed. The next waste is motion. I think of the motion waste as any movement of a person's body, which could include lifting, walking, reaching, hoisting, bending, that results in fatigue. Obviously, we have to do it, but overuse of it is really where the waste occurs. Next waste is waiting. Waiting is anytime an operator or machine is waiting to do needed work. This is the biggest offender of adding lead time to a product and can negatively impact delivery performance. Typically, if you map out your process, you'll find that 99% of the time your product is waiting and not doing anything. In the example you see here, there's people waiting. They're waiting to get to the next step of their inspection process. So the operator is actually waiting in line at the verification area to dry his material and apply a coating and to check to see if the material is good. Remember, whether the material is waiting or the person is waiting, it's all waiting. Our next waste is overproduction. This is to produce too much material or to produce before it's actually needed. So in this example that you see here, we produced more than what the customer wanted. We were worried that we were going to run out of material, so we moved it to the warehouse where it was able to collect dust and take up space until the customer actually needed it. Why is that so bad? Because it hides all of the other forms of waste. We don't need to watch our defect rate or setup waste because, well, we have extras. Eventually we'll toss the extras, which ultimately will most likely result in scrap. We produce more than what we need, which makes it take longer to produce. So what does that mean for all the other material that's ready to also go on that piece of equipment? It's waiting. We could be working on the next job. All waste, all because we decided that we were going to produce more than what the customer actually wanted. Our next waste is overprocessing. Overprocessing can be defined as doing more work than what is necessary or holding a higher quality tolerance than what the customer requires. I always think of overprocessing as excessive adjustments, When I see an operator go back to the same spot multiple times, I often question to myself, why are they doing that? Why do they have to touch that spot more than once? That's an excessive adjustment. Adjust it once and move on. Or holding unnecessary tolerances, holding parts in place that just aren't needed. Also, conducting multiple inspections can be considered over-processing. Sometimes we find ourselves adding to a checklist something, an inspection step, because maybe we had a problem one time before. Those multiple inspections can take more time and more processing. So in this example that you see here, this machine is highly flexible, which causes the operator to have to make many adjustments, including the one in the picture, to get the material to fit correctly and not cause a jam up later on. So this person is constantly adjusting from large envelopes to small envelopes, which causes more time and more processing. Maybe we need to go back to the customer and find out what their actual expectations are for these tolerances so that we can minimize some of the setup time. Our next waste is defects. Anything that produces rework, scrap, mistakes, or errors internally or externally is considered a defect. In this example, you see a lot of red papers. For our company, we use red paper to identify it as a defect or rework. We may have missed a step, we may have produced something incorrectly, or potentially had the wrong quantity or part within the order, all resulting in scrap or a defect. And ultimately, what it means when you have scrap or you have a defect, we're starting back over, right? So it has to be redone. So it has to go through the same process that it went through the first time. And now, whatever waste we had the first time, transportation waste, weighting waste, processing waste, we have it all again the second time. And that can ultimately lead to poor delivery, poor performance, and a perceived need to test and inspect. The next waste is skill or underutilized skill. Underutilized skill is defined as not properly utilizing the experience, talents, and skills of all employees. This is honestly why so many companies implement lean into their facilities. It's a great way to improve your processes and get the people that actually do the work making those improvements, because they are the ones that know. They just need the support to help get it done. Now it's time for you to participate in the application exercise. The first step we would like you to do is identify and write down one example of each of the wastes that we just talked about that you see in your facility. The second step would be to take one of those wastes that you've identified and quantify it. How much time is being lost because of that waste. And finally, write down 3 examples of value-added steps that you can find in your company.